Hey guys, welcome back to another Dragonheir Silent Gods video. In today's video, I'm going to be showcasing a relatively free-to-play team for the new daily boss, Sammaster in the Cult of the Dragon Fortress, as part of the Dungeons and Dragons event for Elminster that goes live on the 23rd of February. Before I get into that though, I do just want to start by saying a huge thank you to the sponsor of today's video, Dragonheir Silent Gods. So a huge thank you to them for helping to support my channel to allow me to continue to grow and produce content for you guys. If you haven't already tried Dragonheir and you're looking to get into it, please do hit the link in the description or the pinned comment and get involved today for free. So with the Sammaster boss, when this actually goes live, once you've beaten it the first time in the story, you will be able to access fighting this boss every single day to gain ourselves some rewards. So at the moment, the boss is a two-phase fight. The first boss is going to be active for, I think it's the first week, and then after that it changes to a different boss where the boss's skills will change. But I've been playing around with some teams that I can get to work that are relatively free to play, so not using any legendaries, using minimal epics, and those teams are designed to get you the maximum reward, which is 8 million damage. That's all you need to get each day. Obviously, this will change when the boss's skills change after the first kind of portion of this event. But the best bit about this is all heroes are fixed at level 100, regardless of their current level, and they are all in preset gear. So you don't have to worry about any kind of interchangeable gear. The only thing that does affect it is their skills and the Psyche core bonuses. So on the test server here, I do have the damage bonus for each of the elements, but I don't have the damage reduction. So it could obviously be improved and vice versa. Obviously, it doesn't need to be as high as it is. You'll see with the damage that I'm able to put out with this team. The one thing I will say is I'm using one epic. They are booked. And obviously in terms of collecting that epic, it's not something everybody will have, but it is something that you can get from either the $1 chest or the summons at the end of the season do contain this epic, so you would be able to pick them up from that. I don't know if the event will still be running there, but hopefully by this point of the game, a lot of people are lucky enough to have that epic. So let's jump in. First of all, what I'll do is I'll run through the skills of this boss once we've had the cutscene, and I will show you the team that I'm using, and then we'll run through it and see how it performs. As I say, you only need to get 8 million damage here. If we look at the skills here, so as you can see, Sammaster, the first skill, the passive skill here, Sammaster and his Dragonheir take 50% additional damage while Elminster is deployed. So if you're using Elminster in your team, everybody else will do 50% more damage. And for each debuff on Sammaster, he takes an additional 10% damage. Next up, the first skill is the Dragonheir lets out a howl, dealing necrotic damage to all enemies and inflicting fear for 5 seconds on enemies whose HP is below 50%. The next skill is Dragonheir deals necrotic damage to all enemies and removes their shields. Next up, we've got Withering Breath, which deals multi-hit necrotic damage to all enemies. This skill deals 50% additional damage when Sammaster is not inflicted with any debuff. So you want to make sure you've got debuffs on at all times, and obviously the boss is immune to all control effects. Finally, each cast of Withering Breath grants a permanent stack of total damage bonus, so every time it uses its ultimate skill, it will gain 20% damage bonus for the rest of the fight. So obviously this is almost like a soft enrage. Eventually the boss is going to do so much damage that you will die. So a few things, obviously. First of all, obviously as you can see here, when Elminster's in the team, you're going to do extra damage, which is kind of counterproductive because Elminster's all about shields and the boss actually removes shields. So he's not fantastic here, I wouldn't say. Here, obviously, the additional damage taken when there's debuffs on the fight, you want to make sure you're bringing plenty of debuffs where you can, just to make sure you're getting the most of this damage bonus. And lastly, the only other thing that's worth mentioning is when inflicting fear, obviously if you're below 50% HP, you're going to want to make sure you've got a good amount of healing to stay above 50% HP as much as you can, because those fears are just going to mess with your timings, and inevitably you're going to take a lot more damage because you're not able to actually use your skills during that time. So the team I'm using here, as you can see, first of all, we've got Throwabath as the tank. This is the only epic I'm using. He is booked, and the reason for that is he does a large amount of healing based on his defense. He's actually got really low defense with the base stats that they've provided, but also he brings attack penalty 2, which is an extra debuff to gain us the extra damage bonus, but also reduce the amount of damage we're going to take. Next up, we've got Lorari. So Lorari is a rare poisoner, so I do have it booked for this. So the passive skill, when dealing damage to an enemy, each stack of poison allows them to ignore 1% of the target's defense. Next up, deals damage to the enemy with a 75% chance of inflicting 2 stacks of poison for 15 seconds, followed by the ultimate skill that deals damage to enemies within range with a 75% chance of inflicting 3 stacks of poison for 15 seconds. So Lorari is bringing a large amount of poison, but also is going to be ignoring defense based on the amount of poisons we've got out. As you can see here, the build for poisoners is actually amazing. So they've got full crit rate, good amount of crit damage, enough accuracy for their poisons, and also enlightenment and attack to scale their poisons further. Next up, we are using Dench. So Dench is also in the exact kind of same type of build as Lorari. So on Dench's passive skill, every third basic attack deals derivative damage to the enemy with a 100% chance of inflicting 1 stack of poison for 15 seconds. The battle skill deals damage to enemies within range with a 50% chance of inflicting poison for 15 seconds. The final skill here sprays poisonous mist to the area dealing for 4 seconds, dealing attack and enlightenment derivative poison damage to enemies within range every 0.8 seconds with an 80% chance of inflicting 1 stack of poison for 15 seconds. The final damage dealer I'm using is Eli. So Eli is once again in the enlightenment crit damage, attack and accuracy build. He brings a passive skill that when dealing damage to enemies under poison, he will deal derivative damage. His battle skill gains 15% attack up for 5 seconds. He then shoots his crossbow at the enemy, dealing damage with a 100% chance of inflicting 1 stack of poison for 15 seconds. And lastly, his ultimate skill shoots 3 waves of bolts in a designated direction. Each wave will deal damage to the enemies. And the last person in this team is my healer, and that's going to be Hexandra. Obviously, somebody everybody gets for free at the start of the game. So Hexandra's passive skill, when healing allies with below 40% HP, her healing will be increased by 30%. Battle skill heals an ally by 150% attack and 1500% enlightenment. Also dispels 1 debuff from them. And finally, the ultimate skill heals all allies within range by 20% of their max HP. So none of these heroes can use artifacts. It is all based on these preset stats. They're not wearing any gear, so you don't get any set bonuses. Obviously, no benefits from the artifacts, so you won't be able to use defense penalty at all in this. I am using the attack in all battles aura from Eli, and the reason they're positioned like this is because of Throwabath's battle skill here. I want to make sure everybody's stacked around him to get benefit of the healing, and the boss hits all enemies anyway, so there's no point spreading them out or putting them into a position where they're not going to get hit, because no matter what, they're going to take that damage. It also means that Hexandra is able to stack everybody up for the healing too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the run and let that play through. I will be back at the end of the run and we'll talk about the result. Obviously, in terms of replacements for these heroes, there's not a huge amount. You could kind of swap out one of the damage dealers for an extra support if you needed to. I'm fairly confident it would still do enough damage, and potentially you could use a different tank, like maybe a rare tank instead of Throwabath if you used an extra healer. But the options are quite slim for rares. Obviously, 4 of these heroes are incredibly attainable. You just need to make sure you find that perfect balance with the tank. So I'm just going to put the damage meter up there, and like I said, I'm going to jump out. I'll be back at the end of the run and we'll discuss how it went.
You are my prey.
There we go. Obviously, we have started to lose people now. It's not going to improve the damage much at this point. Throwabath and Hexandra will try and fight for a little bit, I imagine. But they're not going to do any damage. But as you can see, we've hit 15 million, so nearly double the amount of daily damage you need to do. Obviously, like I said, my Psyche Core is upgraded to the damage bonuses, but not to the damage reduction on the test server. So I think this is probably fairly replicable for most people, as long as you've got Throwabath. But as I say, without Throwabath, if you tried bringing in an additional healer and then somebody else as the tank, even if it means breaking the element bonus, using somebody like Horus as your tank, for example, then I'm quite confident that scraping at 8 million is possible for basically everybody, as long as you've got these rares to kind of form your team around. It will take some playing around, I imagine, without Throw Bath. I did try a few things, but it didn't work. But then again, I didn't try dropping a healer, bringing in an additional healer. In terms of the damage, obviously, as you can see, it's a really nice even split between Eli and Larari, and then Dench is kind of just following behind a little bit. So as I mentioned, obviously, just to show you again, if I can go to the rewards page a second. As I said, the top chest is 8 million, and that will get you the maximum daily Sage's chest pieces towards getting your Elminster, as well as obviously some Worm Arrow, some Essence Creation, and some Starlight Stone Dice. So it's definitely worth getting involved with this event and using a team, a simple team like this. But obviously let me know how you get on in the comments if this team doesn't work with a lower Psyche Core, just to show you where mine's at on the test server. Like I say, been upgraded for all of the damage bonuses, but not the damage reductions. So with this team, obviously, I could get 15% extra damage reduction, which would help see them through a little bit longer. But we only got given a certain amount of affinity solvent, and it didn't stretch far enough, unfortunately. But yeah, that is all for this video today, guys. So the only other thing I want to say is, once again, obviously a huge thank you to the sponsor of this video, Dragonheir Silent Gods. And if you are looking to get involved in the game, please do make sure you hit the link in the description and join the D&D Legends in the world of Dragonheir. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.